Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. This is a different style of video, I've got to say. Although I like to edit videos and get my point across with powerful music and stuff like that, and they are good, they take time, they do take time, and good videos take time to edit. So I'm just going to throw something at you tonight that gets you in the mindset of what I kind of do when I'm researching stuff, and I've usually got hundreds of windows open, my computer's struggling and because all these windows open, and it's about the research of the origins of Christianity and Britain mainly. So if you're here, this is what we're going to be researching tonight. If you're not here for that, well, I'll see you in another video about something else. But this is where I kind of want to go the next year or two. I'm really committed to it because it is something that gnaws away at me. It's almost like a curse. It's gnawed away at me for at least 5-6 years, and it almost comes with this whole truth-seeking thing when you get on the internet and you're looking for the truth and you're looking at secret societies and Illuminati and all these kind of things. Well, I started looking at it more pragmatically, rather than scary people. I started looking, why are these people in power? Why is the Queen the head of the army? Why does Israel exist? Why does the British royalty claim lineage to King David and Solomon and all these Jewish royal lineages? So that's what led me down the lines. It was more to find out why and who are controlling us. And that kind of brought me to Common's Beaumont, which it kind of ticked a lot of my boxes, my suspicions, because as I visited certain sites and ancient sites, I'd see symbols, a lot of symbols, which kept repeating, and phrases that I kept seeing in the Bible and connecting, and I kept seeing parallels, and it was almost like a curse. It was like I kept seeing it. Once you see something, it's hard to unsee things, and I got in this pattern of seeing symbols, and it would just gnaw at me at night time. I would be at work thinking about it, and I would try to tell people the connections, and the eyes would just glaze over. So it's good to see that there is an audience out there for it. It's small, but they do get in touch with me, emails, and I'm grateful for all the support I get for this kind of research. Anyway, on to the research. Like I said, the origins of Christianity. Where is it? Well, I think, in my personal opinion, it's in Britain. That's where it all lies, and mainly the Celtic, like the Welsh, the Irish, and the Scottish, because England kind of got taken over a few times. They kind of lost their culture. Maybe some of them came into the British areas and the Scottish and got forced over beside us and blended in. So I wouldn't say their whole DNA's been wiped out, the ancient English, but they're definitely harder to trace than the Scottish and Irish. Are still kind of around today. We're more resilient. But this is, like I said, this is going to be a totally different kind of video. I'm just going to show you how I kind of research stuff. I'm going to show you what I used Google Earth, and this is something that guys like Common's Beaumont, who lived 100 years ago, never had. They never had these things like the internet, the information, these maps. We've got libraries, archives, and old maps to look at old names, place names, and usually find that the old root of certain names are always there. Again, they kind of stay there. It doesn't matter who conquers, if it's Romans, Normans, Vikings. Usually the root word, the original word for that place that the Aboriginal people called it, usually that stays there, and they add like a Roman bit at the end or a Norman bit at the end, or twist it a little bit, and it's up to you to decipher that. With etymology, it's looking into how words are made up, and it's an interesting thing if you can get into it. But looking at maps, cartography, stuff like that, that's good. And theology, looking at if you can get a wee bit of everything, you're on your way there, guys. You're on your way to your brain nod forever. Luckily enough, I'm still quite a young guy. I'm just coming up for 38, like this in a couple of days. So I noticed a lot of these people that do research this stuff, they're old, and a lot of them are stuck in their ways. I've not got a dog in this race, people. I'm not a Catholic, Christian, anything like that. I've got my own little thing going on. It's not that I'm an atheist, because I'm not an atheist, but I've got my own little thing going on. I've got my own world view, of spirituality and the essence of things and how the universe kind of all works that way. But I don't have any dog in the race when it comes to it. What I'm interested in is my culture and how we can maybe preserve it. We can't change what's happened already in history. We can't. It's just one of these things. But we can try and peel back the onion layers. And these onion layers are thick with disinformation that's been deliberately put over our culture for centuries, guys. Centuries. And we've been fed a lot of crap like clan tartans and all these things that stereotype the Celtic nations like Wales, Ireland and Scotland, like these cartoonish nations who fight for their... They feed us all this crap just to keep us happy, and it's not. It's total bull crap, guys, and we need to dig deeper. Look past all this crap. Look past the flags of St Andrews and just look past all that, because that's not you. That's not your country. And that's not your saint. The same with St Patrick, that ain't your saint. That's some Latin dude that came from Britain that wrecked the Celtic culture and wrecked the true Christianity. And it probably wasn't called Christianity, whatever they were practicing, because Christ wasn't a Gaelic word. And if anything, if you look at, well, do you know what? That could be another story, another bit of research. But we'll start, guys, looking at Google Earth. Here we are. And this is one nifty tool, I've got to say. I love the old Google Earth. But it's just a pity in some of the more like secluded areas that it's hard to get more defined detail. In the main cities, you get 3D buildings and you can see everything. But when you start going to little islands and stuff, it's still pixely and you can't really get a good picture. And I'm on a 4K Mac with a 4K screen, so if anything, I should be seeing the best picture. But anyway, guys, like I said, Lewis, the Levites, Leviticus, all this stuff in the Bible connects to Lewis, this Levi word that you see in the Bible. It's all to do with Lewis, Levi and Lewis, Ailey Lewis. And this is a very special place when it comes to research, guys, and we can't overlook Lewis. I know Beaumont goes on about Orkney Islands and the Shetlands, but I think this is really where it's happening, guys, because there's so much stuff here. When you just start looking at the names of the places, and like I said, if you have a look, I've marked like all over Europe, all over the world, I've marked all the places I can trace the Gaels or the Celts, and there'll be lots more. This is me trying. There's actually places that are there. I've searched by hand, seen them, and I thought I'll type that in later and go back to it. I've typed it in, I can't go back to it. It doesn't take me there. Like a place called Ham on Lewis. Ham. Right. So we'll go back to Lewis. And why is Lewis important? Well, I'll tell you why Lewis is important. Like I said before, this is connected to the Levites, the priests. And this island has something on it that maybe not a lot of you know. Everybody talks about the Stonehenge. Everybody likes to talk about Stonehenge. But the Callanish stones, it's almost a clue. It's the biggest clue almost what's going on here. We've got mountains here. St Moloch. St Moloch is connected. St Molag is connected to Moloch. But this was the Latin guys trying to deceive us now. Like they've done it in the past, they're doing it now. It's this Saint Molag and Moloch. They're the same thing. But like I said, I'll get Callanish up, and this is the big one, guys. Callanish. Well, it's not the big one, but it's a big clue. Right, I'll type it in because there we go. It's further up. I should have guessed. Sorry, guys. Right. So here's Callanish here. It's still an Isle of Lewis. But this has an ancient monument that is 5,000 years old. and it's a row of standing stones. And as you can see here, it gets really pixelated. But guys, let's spin it around. What is that? As you can see, there's a row of stones here, row of stones on either side, and it seems to be facing north, south, east, west, with the circle in the middle. So to me, that's one of the earliest forms of the cross with a circle in the middle of the cross. And this was probably nothing to do with Jesus hanging on it. This was probably a passageway, and in the middle they probably had a fire, where they probably done sacrifices, but it was probably like a ceremony where they walked up this path through the stones, burning fire. Maybe there wasn't even sacrifice, maybe they were jumping over, but there was a purification process. And this is what you find with the book of Leviticus and the Bible. They talk a lot about purification. And I've already shown you in the video before that pure is important. But here, that's just one little nugget. We'll spin the map back around. But it's a handy tool. And like I said, the Callanish stones, we'll have a wee... I'll flick it over on OBS to the... There we go. Right. So the Callanish stones walk among the megaliths of one of Scotland's most magnificent and best preserved Neolithic monuments. The Callanish stones are an extraordinary cross-shaped setting of stones erected 5,000 years ago. They predate England's famous Stonehenge monument and were an important place for ritual activity for at least 2,000 years. We don't know why the standing stones at Callany were erected, but our best guess is that it was a kind of astronomical observatory. Patrick Ashmore, who excavated at Callany in the early 1980s, writes, the most attractive explanation, oh, it's not the most logical explanation, it's the most attractive explanation, is that every 18.6 years, the moon skims especially low over the southern hills. It seems to dance along them like a great god visiting the earth. Knowledge and prediction on this heavenly event gave the earthly authority to those who watch the skies. Yep, and there's probably a lot of truth to that, because the Celts were well into their star watching, so it was probably connected to the stars. Cast and crew of Call the Midwife swapped Poplar for the Outer Hebrides to film their 2019 Christmas special, and Callany Standing Stones featured in the episode. So anyway guys, whatever, that's all attractive. My point is, these are 5,000 years old and they're shaped a cross, they're on Lewis. So, and I might go into a separate video about Lewis and the Levites and what they talk. I've actually got my iPad somewhere, all more windows open on a different device. But like I said, we'll go back to Moloch. So Moloch is very important to this island as well. It must have been, because there's lots of mountains, lots of sites, and there's even a saint called Saint Molag, who's actually Saint Moloch. So the idea of this Moloch coming from like Canaan. So here we go here, Moloch, also Molech, Moloch, Milcom or Malcolm. And Malcolm, like you get the kings, King Malcolm the first, second and third, there were Malcolms in Scotland. Malcolm is a very Scottish word. Is a biblical name of Canaanite god associated with child sacrifice through fire or war. Fire, that's something you need to understand. Sacrifice and fire. The name Moloch results from a dysphemic vocalization in the Second Temple period of a theonym based on the root MLK, king. There are a number of Canaanite gods with names based on the angel of fire and root, which became summarily associated with Moloch, including biblical root, the angel of fire, Revelation 14, King James verse 18, and King James version 18, and then another angel came out from the altar, which had power over fire. So Malcolm, great king, which appears to refer to a god of the Ammonites, as well as the Tyrian Melkart and others. Rabbinical traditions depicted Moloch as a bronze statue heated with fire into which victims were thrown. This has been associated with reports by Greco-Roman authors on the child sacrifices in Carthage and Baal Hammon. And this is another word, Baal. This Baal is everywhere in Lewis. Most places on Lewis probably begin with Baal. And I'll show you this on Google Earth in a minute. Carthage, like I said, we already looked at the root word for Catholic. And this could be something to do with them. The Carthage. Well, Baal Hammon's there anyway. And I'll show you because there was Ham. There was a place called Ham. And I'll need to find it manually because when I type it into the search, it doesn't take me there. But I've seen it on the Isle of Lewis, Ham. Archaeological excavations since the 1920s have produced evidence for child sacrifice in Carthage. In Interpretatio Graeca, the Phoenician god was identified with Cronus due to the parallel mytheme of Cronus devouring his children. Moloch has been used figuratively in English literature, from John Milton's Paradise Lost to Allen Ginsberg's Howl, to refer to a person or thing demanding or requiring a very costly sacrifice. So there you go, there's a depiction of Moloch here on the right. I don't know if you're seeing that in OBS. Have you seen that in OBS? I'll move it over a wee bit. So there you go, there's Moloch. A bull figure. Supposedly with 7 chambers. Is that 7 chambers? 7 chambers on it. They put different stuff in. Like they put a sheep in one, a child in another, oats in another, rye in another. Like they put all different food in it. Anyway, back to the article. And we'll see how it ties in. How it ties in with Molag, because I'm going to make comparisons. And same with Baal. Baal is a Scottish Celtic god. There's no bloody doubt. Name, Biblical Hebrew. MLK usually stands for Melech King, Arcadian, but when vocalized, Moloch in Masoretic text has been traditionally understood as a proper name, while the received Masoretic text dates to the Middle Ages. The existence of the form Ancient Greek. Here we go, we have to go back to Greek. Moloch, whence Vulgate Moloch, in the Septuagint establishes that the distinction dates to the Second Temple period. Moloch has been traditionally interpreted as the name of a god, possibly a god surnamed the king, Adon, Lord, Baal, Master. See, there's Baal, there we go again, Baal, Master, but should pejoratively mispronounced as Molech instead of Melech, using the vocalization of Hebrew, Bosheth, shame, distinguishing it from the title of Melech King, written identically in the consonantal text, which is also frequently given to Yahweh. Thus, in Psalm 5:3, the my milk of the Hebrew text is vocalized Malk, I, and translated my king in the Septuagint. By contrast, in Amos, MLK, KM, your plural MLK is vocalized Malkem, your king, but translated Moloch. So there's different translations, Malcolm, Malkem, Moloch. So here's where it gets, where I mean Leviticus. A lot of it to do with Molech is in Leviticus, as you see here. And what did I say? Lewis is to do with the Levites in Leviticus. And thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Molech, neither shalt thou profane thy name of God. I am the Lord. So Beltane was a Celtic festival where it light fires. Beltane, Bel, Baal, Bel and Baal were the same thing. They'd light fires and they would pass cattle, the bull, through the fires to purify them, to purification. It was like the gods would purify the cattle before they would sell them on. Or trade them. It would get rid of, there was actually a science to it, because it would get rid of all the ticks and the fleas and insects that would feed off the cattle as it's passing between these two fires. So there's a lot of fire connection in Scotland with the celebrations, and as you see the Bible stuff that they throw in, that they're kind of mixing up our culture with the Bible, and it's in Mesopotamia and all these far out flung places, when really it was all happening in the backyard. and all over Britain probably, but I think it has its roots in probably Scotland and Ireland area. Again, thou shalt say to the children of Israel, whosoever he be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn in Israel, that giveth any of his seed unto Moloch, he shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones. Sounds like a nice religion, this Christianity stuff. And I will set my face against that man, and I will cut him off from among his people, because he hath given his seed unto Moloch, to defile my sanctuary, and to profane my holy name. And if the people of the land do any ways hide their eyes from the man, when he giveth of his seed unto Moloch, and kill him not, then I will set my face against that man, and against his family, and will cut him off, and all that go a whoring after him, to commit whoredom with Moloch from among their people. So this is obviously a defamation of this religion that's probably ancient in Scotland and Ireland, and this is their bashing. They're just bashing. Total propaganda, ancient propaganda. Anyway, two further occurrences connect the practice of Tophet, a place of sacrifice in the valley of Hinnom, which later acquired the connotation of hell. 2 Kings 23:10, and he, King Josiah of Judah, defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might take his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Moloch. And they were still celebrating Beltane, and what they done was the kids would jump over the fire. They still do it. They jump over the fire, and it's almost like they get purified. Maybe if they go back far enough, maybe they did sacrifice children to the fire. But when you see so much propaganda against not just child sacrifice, every party, the religion, they're not just targeting the child sacrifice, they're targeting every part of the religion. They're taking over all the gods and replacing them with saints and other things. You notice that a lot of Celtic gods are now saints, Latin saints. Even Patrick and Andrew, St. Patrick and Andrew, the Scottish and Irish, they're just Latin impostors, should we say. And like I said, we're looking through this propaganda, this utter garbage at the end of the day. Jeremiah. And they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the sons of Hinnom, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire unto Moloch, which command them not. Neither came it into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin. So obviously they didn't like this ceremony of, well, what they're saying is throwing their kids in the fire, child sacrifice. But if you go back far enough, most civilizations were doing some form of sacrifice. What right have these people got to come into our country and say it's wrong? Maybe it can, obviously, back then, maybe it wasn't wrong. Maybe the sacrifice of one child seemed important to the whole community because they were very communal, these groups and tribes. And the sacrifice of one for the greater good of the most. And that's the way they thought. They thought if they gave back to the gods, they would, in return, be rewarded as a community. So anyway, as modern people, it's who are we to judge? And these books, these Bibles and this crap here, it's the same. Who are they to judge and who are they to impose their crap? Why didn't they just leave them alone? They had to take over and kill everybody and knock down the ancient bloody sites and build churches, Latin churches, and turn them into Catholic, and it just evolved eventually. But I do think, like I said, the root of Christianity is in Scotland and Ireland because you can see it all here. If you look hard enough and into the places, like I said, Baal, Bel, all these gods. Anyway, we'll go back to reading some of this. The practice of passing through fire associated with the name Moloch in the citation above also occurs without reference to Moloch in Deuteronomy 18:10-13, 2 Kings 16:3 and 21:6, and Ezekiel 20:26-31 and 23:37. Isaiah 30:33 has vocalized Moloch king, but this is widely accepted as an omission of the Masoretic characters, for Tophet is ordained of old. Yea, for the king it is prepared, he hath made it deep and large, the pile thereof of fire and much wood. The breath of the Lord, like a stream of brimstone, doth kindle it. So it sounds like the Lord lit the fire with his breath. On the other hand, 1 Kings 11:7 has the vocalization Moloch in Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. This is widely accepted as an error for Milcom, the specifically Ammonite idol. Right. So that's just the name we've went through. This is the Carthaginian, right? Later commentators have compared these accounts with similar ones from Greek and Latin sources, speaking of the offerings of children by fire as sacrifices in the Punic city of Carthage, a Phoenician colony. Clitarchus, Diodorus Siculus, and Plutarch all mention burning of children as an offering to Kronos or Saturn, that is to Baal Hammon, the chief god of Carthage. It's been suggested that the practice of child sacrifice may have been exaggerated in Roman post-war propaganda in order to make their arch enemies seem cruel and less civilized. Duh! Clitarchus' paraphrase of Scholium to Plato's Republic has a description of the practice which predates the fall of Carthage in 146 BC. There stands in the mists a bronze statue of Kronos, its hands extended over a bronze brazier, the flames of which engulf the child. When the flames fall upon the body, the limbs contract, and the open mouth seems almost to be laughing until the contracted body slips quietly into the brazier. Thus it is that the grin is known as sardonic laughter, since they die laughing. Diodorus Siculus. There was in their city a bronze image of Kronos, extending its hands, palms up and sloping forward to the ground, so that each of the children placed thereon rolled down and fell into a sort of gaping pit filled with fire. Diodorus also relates that relatives were forbidden to weep, and when the Agathocles defeated Carthage, the Carthaginian nobles believed they had displeased the gods by substituting low-born children for their own children. They attempted to make amends by sacrificing 200 children of the best families at once, and in enthusiasm actually sacrificed 300 children. Freeman in the History of Sicily from the earliest times states that Carthaginian nobles had acquired and raised children not of their own for the express purpose of sacrificing them to God. The author states that during the siege, 200 highborn children were sacrificed in addition to another 300 children who were initially saved from the fire by the sacrifice of these acquired substitutes. Plutarch wrote in the Superstition 171, but with full knowledge and understanding, they themselves offered up their own children, and those who had no children would buy little ones from poor people and cut their throats as if they were so many young lambs or young birds. Meanwhile the mother stood by without a tear or moan, but should she utter a single moan or let a single tear, she had to forfeit the money, and her child was sacrificed nevertheless. And the whole area before the statue was filled with a loud noise of flutes and drums, and that the cries of wailing should not reach the ears of the people. And what a lot of rubbish if you think about ancient times and money. Like these medieval idiots didn't realise that back in ancient times they think they were standing with cash. Going, oh, what about my money? I didn't think so. This just sounds like utter propaganda. So the rabbinical commentary, the 12th century Rashi commented on the book of Jeremiah, stated, Tophet is Moloch, which was made of brass, and he heated him from his lower parts in his hands. It's just the same as the Carthage stuff. Divided into 7 compartments, and one in which they put flour, and the second turtle doves, and the third a ewe, and the fourth a ram, and the fifth a calf, and the sixth an ox, and the seventh a child, were all burned together by heating the statue inside. And this is modern interpretations. He is listed among the chief of Satan's angels. So Moloch is listed the chief of Satan's angels in book 1, and is given a speech at the Palamon of Hell in book 2, 43:105, where he argues for immediate warfare against God, who later becomes revered as a pagan god on earth. Is this paradise lost? First Moloch, horrid kings, besmeared with blood, O human sacrifice and parents' tears, though, for the noise of drums and timbrels loud, their children's cries unheard that pass through fire to his grim idol, him the Ammonite worshipped in Rabbah and her Waitrey plain, in Argob and in Basan to the stream of utmost Arnon, nor content with such audacious neighbourhood, the wisest heart of Solomon he led by fraud to build his temple right against the temple of God on that opprobrious hill, and he made his grove the pleasant valley of Hinnom, Tophet, thence, and black Gehenna, called the type of hell. So his book was basing off this old rabbinical stuff, the fallen angels. That's quite interesting. But that's just a book, that's nothing to do with the Bible, so it's not really anything to do with mass research. So anyway, we've looked at Moloch, so we've got an idea of Moloch. So here's Molag. We've got Molag. Saint Molag, also known as Lua, Luan, Luanus, Luge, Molag, Molo, Molua, Murloch, Malu, was a Scottish missionary and a contemporary of Saint Columba, who evangelised the Picts of Scotland in the 6th century, which they were already probably unknown of the religion of so-called Christianity. Saint Molag was a patron saint of Argyll, as evidenced by a charter in 1544 from the Earl of Argyll, which states, in honour of God, Impotent Blessed Virgin, and Saint Moloch, or patron, the House of Lorne became the kings of Dalriada and eventually united with the Picts to become the kings of Scots. Saint Luged, better known as his pet name of Molag, was an Irish noble of the Dal and Ared, one of the main tribes of the Uaid, which is now called Ulster. There are various Irish forms of the name, such as Lugade or Lugade, Luoch and Lua. Latinized to become Lugidus, Lugidius, Lugadius, Lugatius, and Luanus. The name, as it has come down the centuries, Molag or Moloch, is made up of the honorific Mo, plus the original name Luge, pronounced Lua, plus the endearing suffix ok. Other variants include Lugdak, Malu, Molonacus, Moloch, and Molochus. So here we go. Moloch, Molochus. It's kind of saying, there we go, Moloch. So Molag and Moloch, that's a coincidence. So this so-called Moloch, this Carthaginian, Phoenician, far-flung god, no, he's not. I'm sorry to break the news with all the Bible people out there, but he's not. He's from Scotland. It's quite obvious. And one of the biggest, highest peaks in this area is called Ben Moloch. Moloch. Ben Moloch. Up here in Europe, Europa. This is called Europa. And this is probably where the word Europe comes from. Europeans, Europe. This is Celtic, this is Gaelic, Eorope. So this is quite important too, because it's got St. Molag's church here. Is it coming up in the... Usually there's a little church symbol that comes up. But there's a church dedicated to St. Molag here. I don't know why it's not coming up on the thing, because usually you can see the churches. Even click on them. For some reason it's not playing. No way, I think it could be there. That one. So there's a church dedicated here to St. Moloch. And like I said, all over Lewis there's clues to Moloch. Scotland as well has got a mountain. I've called it Ben Moloch too. But here it is here. Where's the name for it? Come on. It's not even plain ball. But this is... No, it's not that one. Look. They've all got their own peaks, and there's no showing me that this is Ben Moloch. They've took the bloody name off it. What's that? Craig Moore. Why have they taken the name of that mountain away? This one was called Ben Molag. That's why I tagged it Ben Molag. And like I said, we've got a saint, Saint Molag. So my point is, Moloch, it's not Phoenician, it's not Carthaginian, it's biblical god Moloch, which is mentioned in the Bible as well. It's Scottish, again. Sorry, people. And like I said, there's other ones. We've seen the root. Right, we'll look more into the Saint Molag actually. MacDonald suggests there must have been a Vita of Molag that is lost because of his prominent appearance in Bernard's Life of Malachi. He writes, further support for this occurs in the life of Patrick by the Cistercian monk Jocelyn of Furness, written in circa 1185, where Moloch Lugasius is described as one of the 6 Irish priests whom Patrick prophesies would become bishops. In a footnote, he adds that the 5 other priests were Columbanus, Coleman, Meldinus, Melon, Lugadius, Mole, Cassanus, Cassan, and Cranus, Kiran. Molag was a bishop active during the period of the First Order of Celtic saints, known as the Clear and Brilliant, the son of Lismore in Alba, Scotland. The First Order were most holy, shining like the sun. This is a clear reference to his membership to the First Order. Shining like the sun. Most holy, shining like the sun. Sounds like Lucifer. Because Lu, like the word Lu, is connected to light. Molag was born between 500 and 520. He may have been the Lugade mentioned in the life of Saint Comgall, who ordained him and to whom he may have the links of kinship. He left with the 12 followers to lead the life of a missionary. Tradition states that the rock on which Molag stood detached itself from the Irish coast, and he drifted across to the island of Lynn of Lorne in Argyll, now called the Isle of Lismore in Loch Lynn, where in 562 he founded his community. Losmore is ancient Gaelic for great courtyard in reference to the monastery. This has been the sacred island of the Western Picts, whose capital was at Berigonium, across the water at Benderloch. Lismore was the most important religious spot to the pagan kings of the area. The kings were cremated on the ancient man-made burial mound of Knock, Engel, Gaelic for Hill of Fire, at Buchail, about 3 miles off the north of the island, near to the site that Molag chose for his first centre. It was therefore the most desirable site for a missionary. Irish missionaries had learnt to focus heavily on the similarity and continuity between early Christianity and paganism, rather than the differences between them. The conversion process was, therefore, one of gradual education rather than outright confrontation, and there were few martyrs in the area. Oh, so it sounds like these were just peace-loving guys. It's never been peace-loving with religion. When you try and force your religion on people, there's never going to be peace. MacDonald describes Lismore as being hugely important, being closely tied with one of the earliest and most important Christian saints in northern Britain, Moloch or Molag. So Moloch is one of the most important Christian saints in northern Britain. Bet you've never even heard of him, Saint Molag. And why is that? Why do you never hear about these people? And we hear about St Andrew all the time. After founding an island monastery on the Isle of Lismore, Molag went on to found 2 other great centres in the land of the Picts at Rosemarkel and Mortlach. These were his 3 centres of teaching, and all 3 were to become the seats of the Roman Catholic sees of the Isles, Ross and Aberdeen. So this is, whoever this guy is taken over Moloch, or taken over the god Moloch, and named himself Saint Molag. So this is the conversion from the paganism to the Christianity. Simpson noted that Molag laboured in Argyll, Ross and Banff, but remains most noted for his work in Aberdeenshire, where he established 3 churches in the valley of the River Dee, Tarland, McGivey and Durris. However, Simpson regarded the most important of Molag's establishments to be the Clova Monastery in Kildrummy. In his Life of the Irish Saint Malachy, Bernard of Clairvaux wrote of Molag, one of the sons of its sacred family, Bangor, Lua by name, is said himself alone to have been the founder of 100 monasteries, Michael Barrett clarifying this as a reference to the monastic houses in Ireland. Molag lived to extremely old age and died on 25th of June 592 in the Gaelic and was buried at this monastery in Rosemarcle, Rossshire, Scotland. The Annals of Ulster record the death of Legate of Lismore in 592, Obbitus Legate Lismore. So the veneration. Molag is said to have been buried at Rosemarkie on the Moray Firth, though his remains were later transported to Lismore and honoured in the cathedral which bore his name. The feast day of St. Molag, 25th of June, was restored in 1898 by Pope Leo XIII. He is one of the 48 saints referred to in the Laura Stow Missal used by churches of Ireland, Scotland, Britain, France, Germany, Switzerland, Northern Italy. St. Lou of Lismore, pray for us. The Corp, or successor of St. Molag, is the Livingston chief of the clan MacLeod. The Livingston family of Lismore had long been in the hereditary abbots of Lismore, and hence the possessors of the crozier of the saint. The bell of St. Molag, was in existence until the 16th century when it disappeared during the Reformation. An ancient bell found at Kilmichael Glassery, Argyll, was thought to have been the lost bell. Legacy and dedications. Several churches were dedicated to St. Molag. And we were looking at this one, Team Molag. Well, we're looking for it. It's disappeared off Google Earth for some reason. Same with St. Moloch, because I marked them. Other sites include churches at Clat and Tarland in Aberdeenshire, and also churches in Skymull, Rassay, Tyree and Pabay. These are all the islands. And this is the Hebrides Islands. This is where you should be looking, really, for the root of Christianity. At Alf and Perth and Kinross, there remains the ruins, also known as the Alf Arches, of a church which was built on the site of an older 6th century church dedicated to the saint. It has been suggested that the concentration of dedications to Molag in northeast Scotland, in particular in the vicinity of Rinnie, may be a legacy of a saint cult promoted during the reign of Nectan Mac Derley and contemporaneous with the ascendancy of Kenel Lorne, with whom his Pictish kingdom appears to have enjoyed good relations. At Mortlach in Banffshire, where some of his relics were preserved, an abbey was founded in 1010 by Malcolm, and that's Malcolm of Scotland, in thanks for a victory in which the Scots had invoked in the aid of St. Molag. On Lewis, St. Molag was invoked for curses from madness. At Clat, there was held annually St. Maloch's Fair, which lasted 8 days. At Tarland, there was a Luoch Fair, which is thought to have been the honour of St. Molag. So we'll have a look at this one here, Lewis. Right, Teampal Mulad, and this word Teampal, this is Gaelic for temple, like a temple. So the word temple's probably got its roots in Teampal. Moulay. St. Molag's Church, Teampal Moulay, is a 13th century church in the village of Eorope in Ness in the Isle of Lewis in Scotland. The church has a basic T-shaped structure with 2 small chapels on either side of the main body of the church. The southern chapel can only be accessed from the outside. There is much speculation about the ancient origins of this place of worship. One tradition tells of St. Ronan founded the church before retiring to the Isle of Rona, and legend travelling on the back of a whale. So if you want to, and this is another line investigation, St. Jonah in the Bible is actually Ronan, and he travelled to the Isle of Rona on a whale. And if you look at that story and the Jonah, they're practically the same. So this is all happening in Lewis. The church is now in use as a Episcopal Church. There are ruins of another temple, Timpal Rone, about 500 metres, 1600 feet north-east of Timpal Mule, and the remains of another temple, Timpal Feder, or Perer, are about 2 kilometres, 1 mile southwest of Timpal Mule, beside the old graveyard near the village of Swainbost. History and legend. The church is dedicated to the shadowy figure St. Molag. It has been suggested that the church was built by the son of a Scandinavian king who had converted to Christianity. Bullshit. See, it has been suggested. Who suggested this rubbish? It was built by the son of a Scandinavian king. Aye, it sounds like with Saint Mole to Christianity, aye. And I take it, he never just converted to Christianity, he converted to Gaelic as well. One of the most enduring traditions associated with the church is its power as a place of healing, especially for those afflicted with mental problems. Many people were brought here in the hope of healing, and even those who could not reach the church sent wooden effigies of their afflicted parts. Captain Dimes, who came to Lewis in 1630, recorded that people who could not visit the church were wont to cut out the portion of their lame arms or legs in wood with the form of their sores and wounds thereof, and send them to the saint, where I have seen them lying on the altar of the chapel. Perhaps one of the most interesting stories and traditions associated with the church is its links with the god of the sea, Shoni. And this is another one, guys, right? I've already got Jonah and Rona and Shoni. And this word Shoni is just the Celtic form of Johnny. Or Sean is John. Because in Ireland and Scotland, in the Gaelic language, they didn't have J's. They didn't have J's, so there was no Jesus. In fact, there was no J's up until the Latin language in the 5th, 14th century, something like that. There was no J's up until that point. So there was no Jesus. Well, his name wasn't that. But they'll argue his name was, it wasn't Jesus, because there was no J, but it was Yeshua. Well, Yeshua is Joshua. So if they used Y's instead of J's, why wasn't it Jesus? Or something like that. And they just keep digging deeper holes for themselves, and it's, like I said, you want to know who Jesus is? Well, Jesus without a J. Let's type in Isis. Isis, Celtic, meaning Lord or Master. So Isis in Celtic is the Lord. Isis the Lord. A powerful Celtic deity, one of 3 mentioned by the Roman poet Lucan in the 1st century AD. The other 2 were Tyrannus, Thunderer, and Tuatates. Sorry, people, about some of these pronunciations. The god of the people. It is midnight right now, and you'll probably see this in the morning. Isis's victims, according to later commentators, were sacrificed by being ritually stabbed and hung from trees. How did Jesus die? Hanging, but wait a minute, before he died being hung up on a cross, he was stabbed. He was stabbed in the side, and this is what symbolises it. The stabbing and hanging on the tree is Isis. This is, like I said again, connected to Gaelic, Celtic religions. But where were we? We were like I said, it's so much to take in, guys. It is, it's hard, and like I said, when you've got all this going around your head, you come across more stuff like Shoni. So like I was saying before, Sean is John, Shoni, Johnny. The letter J wasn't around, so it's Shoni. And there was a ceremony where they go into the sea. We'll probably read it here actually. And I think this is connected to St. John the Baptist, who was apparently a sort of pre-Jesus. He kind of predicted Jesus coming along. But Shawnee, I think the whole idea of putting your head under the water, like water connecting, with Shawnee, is John the Baptist. Shawnee, anglicised Shawnee, or Shawnee, which isn't anglicised, it's Johnny, was a water spirit in Lewis, according to Martin. Dwelly defines, and this is a specific god to this island. You can't find this god anywhere else. This is what makes it special to this Lewis island. Dwelly defines Shoni without the I, a related form in Scottish Gaelic, as augury, sorcery, druidism, and quotes Martin further. Martin says that inhabitants of Lewis used to appropriate Shoney by a cup of ale in the following manner. They came to the church of St. Mulway, Melroba, each man carrying his own provisions. Every family gave a bag of malt, and the whole was brewed into an ale. One of the number was chosen to wade into the sea up to his waist, carrying in his hand the cup full of ale. When he reached a proper depth, he stood and cried aloud, Shawnee, I give this cup of ale, hoping that thou will be so good to send us plenty of seaweed used as fertilizer, for enriching our ground during the coming year. So it was the act given to the sea. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, if you go back further, there was an more ancient drowning. But instead of the ale being poured into the sea, there was probably a head being dunked under the water. Or even a purification. Maybe the head came under the water and you came back up and they've replaced it with the ale. So it takes you off the path. Maybe this is how they worshipped the sea god Shoney. He then threw his ale into the sea in a ceremony performed at night. On his coming to land, they all repaired to church, where there was a candle burning on the altar, where they stood still for a time, when, on a given signal, the candle was put out, and straight away they adjourned to the fields where the night was spent mirthfully over the ale. Next morning they returned to their respective homes in the belief that they had ensured a plentiful crop for next season. It seems like Shoney was originally some kind of god, whose worship has been lightly Christianized, by the way, just lightly, by the addition of various church features. However, it is also possible that Shoney, the Scottish Gaelic form of the English Johnny. Oh, I thought you were saying the anglicised Shawnee. No, Johnny may also be a reference to one of the saints John. And I think St. John the Baptist, Shawnee. And it goes back to Lewis all over again. Lewis is the place to go, people. I'm telling you. And please, if you're watching right now and I've missed something, and something I've read clicked in your head, please send, if there's a parallel you can find, send them my way. I'll definitely look into it. So here's Lou. We'll talk about another one. Let's make a night of it, let's talk about Lou. Since I've got all these windows open, maybe I can be satisfied to close each one of them down. So because I probably won't. I'll probably make an edited video of all this stuff, but that takes a lot of time. Right, so who is Lou? Lou, or Lug, Old Irish, Modern Irish, is one of the most prominent gods in Irish mythology. A member of the Tuatha De Danann, Lou is portrayed as a warrior, a king, a master craftsman, and a saviour. He is associated with skill and mastery in multiple disciplines, including the arts. He is also associated with oaths, truth, and the law, and therefore with rightful kingship. Lou is linked with the harvest festival of Lugnasa, which bears his name. His most common epithets are Lamfada, of the long arm, possibly for his skill with a spear or his ability as a ruler, and Samaldanach, equally skilled in many arts. In mythology, Lugh is the son of Cian and Ethnu, or Ethilu. He is the maternal grandson of the Fomorian tyrant Balor. The Fomorian tyrant Balor. In Irish mythology, Balor, or Balar, was a leader of the Fomorians, a group of malevolent supernatural beings. He's often described as a giant with a large eye that wreaks destruction when opened. Balor takes part in the Battle of Mag Tuired, in which is probably known. This is another one, see, I could click it and we could be reading for another half an hour, but we'll just move on. Tyrant Balor, whom Lugh kills in the Battle of Mag Tuired. His foster father is the sea god Manannan. Lugh's son is the hero Cu Chulainn, who is believed to be an incarnation of Lugh. Lugh has several magical possessions. He wields an unstoppable fiery spear, a sling stone. He owns a hound named Balanus. He is said to have invented Fidchel, a Gaelic equivalent of chess, ball games and horse racing. He corresponds to the pan-Celtic god Lugus, and his Welsh counterpart is Leilo Giffis. He also has been equated with Mercury as well as Apollo. Abodes. So, I don't know, I'll try and slide the image along so you can see it better here. Oh, wrong one. You can see here the abodes. Cath Mage Tura. Cath. There we go. Cath Mage Tura. There's that word again. Cath. Cath. Right. So we've had a quick look at, and like I said, we could start digging deeper into these, but I'd be here all night, people. I would be literally here all night. So I just have to be less rambly as I can be. But if you're within this research, you know yourself, guys, this can be like this. Like, you end up going down different paths, and you try to put it all together. You're finding all these pieces of this puzzle. You're finding this jigsaw scattered everywhere, and you're just putting pieces together, and sometimes you're knocking the pieces away, and and I wonder if I'll ever complete this jigsaw. But like I said, I'll keep going for now. So I think Lucifer could be connected with Lu. He's a light bringer. But definitely there's something to do with Lu and Lucifer. I could go into there's so much bloody. Let's see. A male figure bearing a torch, light bringer. So we'll look at Baal and Baal. Remember, we're looking at Baal and Baal. Lucifer, I would just throw that in there just as a comparison to Lu. You keep hearing this word Lu, and again, they could all be the same thing. Balanus, also as Balanus, Bel, Beli, Mar, is a sun god from the Celtic mythology. In the 3rd century, the patron deity of the Italian city of Aquileia. So he's a deity and patron saint, called the Fair Shining One. Oh, the Fair Shining One. Oh, aye. The Fair Shining One. That sounds familiar. What were we just looking at there? Oh, the light bringing. There's definitely, like I said, sometimes you won't find it on one page, and you move to the next and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Could Bel and Lucifer actually be connected? Yep, Belu. I'm telling you guys, he was one of the most ancient and most widely worshipped Celtic deities, and is associated with the ancient fire festival and modern Sabbat, Beltane. Beltane. This is where we get our bonfires from. They hide it behind Guy Fawkes, but it's really Beltane. They'll make up some bloody crap why they celebrate it because of Guy Fawkes, and for all we know, maybe someone tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament, but I think these were really Celtic festivals that were just Christianised. They just don't want to tell us the true story of how they Christianised them. They probably wiped out plenty of people, and right up to Cromwell, right up, can go back far enough. They've been trying to wipe out this stubborn religion, and we're still picking through it. It's like we can see that even the stuff we put together could be still wrong. But we just have to keep going and peel it, like I said earlier, peeling back these onion layers. So, he was one of the most ancient and widely worshipped Celtic deities, and is associated with the ancient fire festival of modern Beltane. He was associated with the horse, as shown by the clay horse figurines at Balanus, St. Sabine shrine in Burgundy, and also the wheel, perhaps like Apollo, with whom he became identified in Augustan history. Balanus was thought to ride the sun across the sky in a horse-drawn chariot. There are 51 known inscriptions dedicated to Balanus, mainly concentrated in Cisalpine Gaul, Noricum, and Gallia Norbenensis. So you see the Gael here. But also extend as far beyond into Celtic Britain and Iberia, who Validation Boy was talking about the other day there. Images of Balanus sometimes show him to be accompanied by a female, thought to be the Gaulish deity Bellissima. Tertullian, writing in 200 AD, identifies Balanus as the national god of Noricum. Inscriptions dedicated to Balanus are concentrated in the Eastern Alps in Gallia Cisalpina, but there is evidence the popularity of the god became more widespread in the Roman period. The 3rd century emperors Diocletian and Maximin each dedicated an inscription to Balanus in the region of Aquileia. Further 6 votive inscriptions of Balanus were discovered at Altinum, Concordia, Ilium Carnicum. The soldiers of Maximinius Thrax, who laid siege to Aquileia in 238, reported seeing an appearance of the god defending the city from the air. Etymology. In epigraphy, the forms of Balanus, Balanus, and Balanus are on record. Other variants may be corruptions of the same name. Thus, a single inscription found near Olox has Balanux, and Herodian as Belin. The etymology of the name is unclear. Suggestions are informed by the identification with Apollo, but the wide range of attributes of Apollo, as of the god of light, knowledge, music, poetry, mantrix, oracles, healing, and medicine, etc., opens a wide field of possible parallels. Well, I've showed you parallels with Celtic gods, but they just want to ignore them. Like Gaelic gods, they just keep going back to Greece and Rome, and it could be based on them. Nah, they're basing their shit on us. In ancient Gaul and Britain, Apollo may have been equated with 15 or more different names and epithets, notably Granus, Borvo. There's an island in Lewis with this similar name, Maponus, Moratascus, and others. An epithet of Balanus may have been Vedonus. Apollo Vedonus had a temple at Essarios near Chatillon sur Seine in Burgundy. The sanctuary was based on a curative spring. Part of the temple pediment survives, bearing an inscription of the god to the spirit of the springs, and above it the head of radiant sun deity. Many votive objects were brought to the shrine, some of oak, some of stone. Some offerings take the form of images of hands holding fruit or cake. And this is the festival of Beltane. Beltane in Scotland, there was, during the festival, the ancient festival, there was oat cakes made, and one of them was burnt. There was like a whole load of oatcakes, and one of them was blackened with the charcoal, and they put them in a hat, these oatcakes, and the boys in the local community had to pick each oatcake out, and the one that picked out the black one had to be the sacrifice. But it wasn't a sacrifice, they still even practiced this ceremony, and they had to jump over the fire. But this could be connected with this cake. Some offerings take the form of images of hands holding fruit or cake. Others represent the parts of the body requiring a cure. In many cases, there we go, other represents the parts of the body. We could see that with St. Molag when they were cutting bits of wood out. In many cases, the pilgrims appear to have suffered from eye afflictions. In a single inscription, Balanus is given the epithet Teutorix. This is the basis of a suggestion according to which the Germanic name Theodoric was an origin of Thenum borrowed from Gaulish into early German religion. So they just like to throw that shit in there just to mix up. There we go, there's some German, there's some Gaulish, there we go. Try to keep you away. For Lewis. Derived names. The Welsh given name, Llewellyn, combines the theonyms Lugus and Belinus. The name of the ancient British king, Cunobelinus, may mean Hound of Belinus. Alternatively, in accordance with modern Welsh rendering, Cynfelyn, it could mean precursor to Belinus, one of who precedes Belinus. A further interpretation based on the kennings, association of the word in particular culture, of Cuno and Belinus is shining excellent warrior. Shining excellent warrior, and like I said about the Catholic video I made beforehand, this pure warrior, or young warrior. Based on Cuno being hound or dog, which was Cuchulainn. This is what we read earlier with Lugh. His son was Cuchulainn. His name was actually Santanta, but they changed it to Cuchulainn, the hound, because he killed the king's guard dog. So he had to take the place of the guard dog and be the hound. So he was called Cuchulainn, meaning the hound. Cuno, there we go, Cuchulainn, Cuno. Being hound or dog, which associated with warriors, and bell meaning shining, which has been equated with skill in such excellence in particular area, war fighting. The name of legendary King Belinus in Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain is probably also derived from this god. Beli Maw, or Beli the Great, an ancestor figure in medieval Welsh literature, has also been connected to the theonym but alternative suggestions connect the name to Gaulish Bolgoius and the tribal name of the Belgae. Diodorus Siculus named Cornwall, Cornavai, and that can originate from Horn, Bellerin, the first recorded place name in the British Isles. This is usually derived from the root bell, bright, meaning shining land or similar, and not necessarily connected to the theme. So I think we should go back to Google Earth and look at how many places have got Baal or Bel in the name in Lewis. Okay guys, so I wasn't screen sharing there like an idiot. I was showing my other page, my other shared page. I've just not used this OBS Studio in so long, so bear with me guys. Right, so like I was saying before, like if you look all over Lewis and all over the Hebridean Islands and in Ireland and all over Scotland, you'll find Bel and Baal. Even Belfast is the root, has its name there. There's Ballyshare, Ballyvanich. This is on Lewis as well. How are you looking? And sometimes you have to zoom in even further to get the little mountains and the lochs. Sometimes they won't even tell you. There you go, Loch a Glynn. So it's just trying to discover. And now look at these places. You type in and they won't even come up. They won't even come up in the search. They're so obscure. But like I was saying before, if you look, there's bells and Baals everywhere. It's not just Scotland, it's Ireland. And there's probably quite a few places in England if you look. I can't think of any offhand. Funnily enough. Edenbane. There we go. Just zoom in a little bit. We've got Balvrade. Camasbane. Igles. Balmacara. That sounds a proper Scottish word, Balmacara. What else have we got here? So we've got Canaan as well. We've got the Canna. This island here, Canna. Canaanites maybe. I've not looked deep into that one, but that could be where the Canna come from. But like I said guys, Bel, Baal, Beltane, Belfast, Balamori, it just all this root word Baal, they keep telling us it's Mesopotamian, Phoenician, blah 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 blah, biblical, blah 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 blah. No, it's no. It's for the British Isles, particularly the Scottish Isles, I think the Hebridean, but back then it wasn't even Scotland. There wasn't such things as Scotland and Ireland back in these times when this was all going on. So it's up to you guys to look into it as well. It's like there's so much info here, guys. I'm just overwhelmed with it all a lot of the time. We're looking at Baal, Balanus. Then we've got Baal here. So Baal, properly Baal, was titled and honorific, meaning owner, Lord. So there we go again, we've got the Lord. This keeps propping up. Like Jesus the Lord. In the northwest Semitic languages spoken in the Levant during antiquity. Bull. The Levant is Levi. This word live, Levi's. The Levant is Lewis people. That's where the Lavante is. And this inscription, which you probably can't see on OBS, but I'll move it over a bit. Whatever this is. So apparently this is Baal here. Baal, Lord, in Northwest Semitic languages spoken in the Levant during antiquity. So Levant, there you go. It's meant to be in Israel area. From its use among people, it became to apply to gods. Scholars previously associated the theonym with solar cults. We've heard a lot of sun worship in the Celtic deities, and a variety of unrelated patron deities, but inscriptions have shown the name Baal was particularly associated with the storm and fertility god Hadad and his local manifestations. The Hebrew Bible includes use of the term in reference to various Levantine deities. This is Levi. This is Lewis. Often with the application towards Hadad, who was decried as a false god. That use was taken over into Christianity and Islam, sometimes under the form of Beelzebub in demonology. The spelling of the English term Baal derives from the Greek Baal, which appears in the New Testament, and it's Latinized from Baal, which appears in the Vulgate. So it's Latinized Baal. It's nothing to do with Gaelic, and they just coincidentally had an ancient Gaelic language, and the Gaelic is ancient, more ancient than these English, what they called, Romance languages as well, Latin. And the Gaelic had the Baal. Why did they not mention it? Doesn't it make sense? The English term Baal derives from Greek, and we have to go back to Greek. We can't go back to our own ancient language where English derives from. We have to go back to the Greek to find the roots of our own words. We have to go away to Greece. Do you know what I mean? Is this not a joke? And this is the theme you see. And maybe I'm not right, guys, with everything I put together, but there's more coincidences. There's enough coincidences. And they're not even coincidences, they're parallels. That's enough for me to sit there and think. Probably overthink. These forms in turn derive from the vowelless Northwest Semitic form Bil, Phoenician and Punic. The word's biblical senses as a Phoenician deity, there we go, Phoenician again, and false gods. Generally were extended during the Protestant Reformation to denote any idols, icons and saints, or the Catholic Church generally. In such contexts, it follows the anglicised pronunciation and usually omits any mark between its two A's. In close translation of the Semitic name, the ayin is represented as Baal. In the Northwest Semitic languages, Ugaritic, Phoenician, Hebrew, Amorite and Aramaic, don't mention Gaelic. Don't even mention Gaelic. And don't even mention that Gaelic is one of the oldest Indo-European languages. The word Baal signifies owner, and by extension Lord, a master or husband. Conates includes Akkadian Belu, Amoraic Baal and Arabic Baal. And Baal still serves as a words for husband in modern Hebrew, Arabic respectively. They also appear in some contexts concerning the ownership of things and possession of traits. So what's that got to do with a god? Husband. The feminine form is Baal. Like the Gaelic Baal can fire, can stuff like that. That makes more sense. Can the worship in the fire, but there's husband. The feminine word is Ba'ala, meaning mistress in the sense of a female owner of lady of the house, and still serving as a rare word for wife. Suggestions in early modern scholarship also included comparison with the Celtic god Balanus. Oh, there we go. They throw that wee shitty bit in at the end. And a few words in a paragraph. Balanus, who we've just looked at. Balanus. El. And there's a lot of places I'll probably do a thing about El as well. Hadad, this is one I've not looked into, but I probably will. So Baal is well attested in surviving inscription as popular in theophoric names throughout the Levant, but he is usually mentioned along with other gods, his own field of action being seldom defined. Nonetheless, Ugaritic records show him as a weather god, with particular power over lightning, wind, rain and fertility. The dry summers of the area were explained as Baal's time in the underworld, and his return in the autumn was said to be caused the storms and revived the land. Thus, the worship of Baal and Canaan, where he eventually supplanted El as the leader of the gods and patron of kingship, was connected to the region's dependence on rainfall for its agriculture, unlike Egypt and Mesopotamia, which focus on irrigation from the major rivers. Anxiety about the availability of water and crops and trees increased the importance of his cult, which focuses attention on his role of a rain god. He was also called upon during the battle, showing that he was thought to intervene actively in the world of man. Unlike the more aloof El, the Lebanese city of Baalbek was named after Baal. The Baal of Ugarit was the epithet of Hadad, but in the time past the epithet became a god's name, while Hadad became the epithet. It's funny how they've got one place in the Lebanese called Baalbek, and suddenly that's why the city was named Baal. And if you look all over Scotland and Ireland, everywhere it's called Baal. Twisted serpent. Baal was usually said to be the son of Dagon, but appears to be one of the sons of El in Ugaritic sources. Both Baal and El were associated with the bull. The bull, there we go again, the bull. And as I said before, in Gaelic culture, the bull was very important during Beltane as they passed it through the fire. Symbolising both strength and fertility. The virgin goddess Anat, his older sister and wife, she is sometimes mentioned to being his child. He held special enmity against snakes. Sounds like Patrick. Both on their own and representatives of Yamu, sea, the Canaanite sea god and river god. The Canaanite Yamu, the Canaanite sea god and river god. He thought the Tannan, the Tananu, the twisted serpent, Lotan, the fugitive serpent, the biblical Leviathan, and Leviathan. Look at that! Oh my god. Levi is actually there as well. As a creature with the form of a sea serpent from Jewish mythology, it is referenced to several books of the Hebrew Bible, including Psalms, the book of Job, the book of Isaiah, the book of Amos. There's a sea god. There's a sea god. And Shawnee, Levi, Lewis. And the mighty one with 7 heads. We hear this a lot as well, the 7. So we've got the bull. Remember the bull with the 7 chambers? This Moloch, the bull, the 7. This is what I'm saying. I think these all could be linked to the same gods. Baal's conflict with Yamu is now generally regarded as a prototype of the vision recorded in the 7th chapter of the biblical book of Daniel as vanquisher of the sea. Baal was regarded by the Canaanites and Phoenicians as a patron of sailors and seagoing merchants. As a vanquisher of Mot, the Canaanite death god, he was known as Baal Rapi Uma and regarded as a leader of the Rephaim and the ancestral spirits, particularly those of ruling dynasties. From Canaan, worship of Baal spread to Egypt by the Middle Kingdom and throughout the Mediterranean following the waves of Phoenician colonization in the early 1st millennium. He was described with diverse epithets, and before Ugarit was rediscovered, it was supposed that these referred to distinct local gods. However, as explained by Day, the texts at Ugarit revealed that they were considered local manifestations of this particular deity, and analogous to the local manifestations of the Virgin Mary in the Roman Catholic Church. In those inscriptions, he is frequently described as victorious Baal, Alan or Alan Baal, mightiest one, Ali or ally, or mightiest of the heroes, Ali Kurdum, the powerful one, and his role as patron of the city Baal of Ugarit, as Baal Zaphon. He was particularly associated with his palace atop Jebel Akra, the ancient Mount Sepanu in classical Mons Cassius. Mons Cassius. That might be one to look into. He also mentioned as Winged Baal and Baal of the Arrows. Phoenician and Aramaic inscriptions describe Baal Kintrils, Baal of the Lebanon, Baal of Sidon, Baal of the Heavens, Baal of Adir, Baal Haman. So we've got Judaism. There's no mention. So it's it's not really connected at all here, apart from this one line with Scotland or Ireland. That's it, Balanus. Everything else is Jewish, Christian, and they don't even try to make any parallels apart from that one sentence. Suggestions in early modern scholarship also included Lee comparisons with the Celtic god, but that's all you get, and we've already looked at this article. So, why don't we look at this wee temple before we go? Temple Mule. Oh wait there, we already did. It's a 13th century church that's been built on a more ancient area. Anyway guys, like I said, we've looked at Callanish, the oldest cross known in the ancient world, I reckon. Like, that represents a Christian cross. You can have a look at it again, the Callanish stones. Facing, it's north south, it's lined with the poles. We've got Esus here because it's a Celtic deity, because they never had the letter J's, and what they done, the victims of Esus were hung up on a tree, stabbed like Jesus on the cross. We have Baal, we have Bel, we have Lucifer, the bright shining one connected to Baal, and Lu, it just goes on and on. Shawnee, who's connected to John, Saint John. We've got Moloch, who's definitely some god that was worshipped. That this god could be the same as Bel, connected to Bel. So there you go, people. This is just, like I said, sometimes it's hard to put in a certain order, but I'll just do it how I've got my windows open. If you like these kind of videos, let me know. If you see anything that's sparked a line of inquiry for yourself, or a rabbit hole as we like to call it, let me know, and I'll because I'm very obsessive about this, and if you can't get the oomph to have a look, I probably will. Right guys, thanks for joining me in this long-winded kind of a research stream. And this is what I usually do, but I'm not talking to anyone usually. I'm just sitting, looking, reading, going through articles, copying, pasting names, looking into roots of names, and then it's like I'm usually doing it on my own. I can sit sometimes all day and night. And you ask, like, if you want to ask my missus, like, I've sat for like getting up all night. I just get obsessed sometimes, and I just can't stop finding little lines of inquiry. Anyway, people, it's either I'm going insane or there's something to all this. Okay? Have a good day. See you later.